So, a very good evening to one and all. Good evening, children. So, today we are going to discuss about 10th class social. 10th class social, 4th chapter, climate. Okay. So, in a previous class, we discussed, we completed children the 3rd chapter. Now, it's about the 4th chapter, climate. So, what is a climate? The question comes. Generally, what we find, children, that in our day-to-day life, most of the people, they use the word climate as today's climate is very cool, outside climate is very hot, climate is like this, climate is like that. But what do you think with the using the day-to-day changes in temperature, precipitation, can we call that one all these changes as a climate? Is it a correct word to use a climate? Even the meteorological department, the department that predicts the weather conditions, now it is a question before them how to predict the weather condition or the climatic condition of a place. As you're observing that before the years 10 years or 20 years back, we find that it was very easy for the meteorological department means a department that predicts the rainfall, that predicts the temperature, that predicts the flood situation, etc. So easily they used to predict it that in the coming 48 hours there is a heavy rainfall, cyclone is going to come, a pressure developed over the sea area, storm is going to struck, like that. But today the situation is like that there is no possibility that when there is a change in the weather or the climatic conditions. So we find that suddenly there is a heavy rainfall, suddenly there is a hailstorms. Suddenly we can find that low pressure developed in the Bay of Bengal or the Arabian Sea caused that cyclonic conditions in the coastal areas. Cloud burst in Uttarakhand. You remembered some years back there was a cloud burst. Because of that there was a floods in the Uttarakhand areas. So like that we find that the problems are going on. So actually, before to discuss everything, it is very clear for us to know that what is the difference between a weather and a climate. Educated people also, most of the time, they use the word climate for the day-to-day changes. Okay, but the both terms are different. What is a weather? Let us discuss now. Weather, the state of atmospheric conditions of elements. It is in a state of atmospheric conditions of elements. Which elements? Elements like sunshine, elements like temperature, elements like atmospheric pressure, winds, humidity, precipitation. Precipitation means rainfall, children. So, when there is a change of this atmospheric condition in all these elements over a particular time, over a small period of time, children, that we called as weather. Observe it. When we wake up early in the morning by 7 o'clock, by 7 o'clock in the morning, you observe that the sunshine is the sunlight that comes from the sun. It is not very hot. It's not containing much heat. But as the sun comes to the middle of the sky, we find that the sun rays falls directly to the land, and it creates more humid condition. We start feeling sweating, children, more temperature. So all these things, and again by the evening time as the sun starts setting, children, evening again it becomes very cool. Morning atmospheric condition is different, afternoon atmospheric conditions are different, and evening atmospheric conditions are different. Morning cool, afternoon very hot, evening very cool, and night more cool. What it makes all cool and hot, children? Sunshine. Temperatures, changes in the temperatures, changes in the atmospheric pressure, changes in the winds, the speed of the winds, changes in the humidity, and changes in the rainfall conditions for a small period of time, that we call as weather. What we call, children? That we call as weather. Okay, that's why whenever you open a news channel in the television, each and every news channel, after the completion of the news, they give children the weather report. Weather report, suppose if we are getting the news in every hour weather report we get, children, the change of all these elements for a short period of time, it means it is weather. Then what is climate? Climate is just opposite. All these elements, if it change over a long period of time, maybe sometime 30 years or above, the same thing continues, what we find in poles, polar regions, okay, that we call as climate. All these elements, if it won't change for a long period of time, sometime 30 years or 30 years and above, that we call as climate. So what is climate? Weather conditions over a large area. Weather conditions over a large area for a long period of time. For a long period of time, 30 years or above, that we call as climate. So I hope it is very clear what is weather and what is climate. What is weather? The atmospheric condition where the elements like sunshine, where the elements like temperature, atmospheric pressure, winds, humidity, precipitation changes over a small period of time, very short period of time, that we call as weather. And when it changes for a long period of time, that we call as climate. Is it clear? So after learning these differences between the weather and the climate, so what happened? What we have to discuss, children, that how we can measure this weather and climate. So there is a graph. There is a graph called as climograph. There is a graph called as climograph. What does climograph do? The pattern of elements of weather and climate. The pattern of elements of weather and climate. Patterns of elements of weather and climate. It over a place, over a particular place, can be shown by this graph called as climograph. This is important for 1 mark. What is a climograph, children? Climograph is nothing but it is a graph that shows the pattern of elements. This graph, it's shown, children, for example, temperature. The temperature during a week, whether temperature increased, decreased, or what. By the help of that, easily we can find it out. Yes, there is a decrease in temperature. Or sometime it shows about monthly values of rainfall. Sometime we find in some of the months there is less rainfall. Sometime we find in some of the months there is a heavy rainfall. Sometime we find it is in like this. So this is also, children, is shown by the climograph. So the graph that shows the elements. Like what elements we discuss? We discuss sunshine, we discuss, children, what we call humidity, we discuss temperature, we discuss rainfall, and others. So all these differences are showing, all these changes are shown by the climograph, When you look after your textbook, children, you can find it out, children, all about climograph. In textbook, you can find, children, there are the graphs that shows all about this climograph. So, after this climograph, what we have to discuss? We have to discuss the factors that influence the climate or the weather. So factors that influence, we have to discuss the various factors that influence weather and climate. Factor that influence weather and climate. What are the factors that influence the weather and climate? So there are 4 factors are there. First factor is latitude. Second factor is distance from the sea. Third factor is altitudes. Third factor is altitude. And the fourth factor, children, it is upper air circulation. Fourth factor is upper air circulation. So these are the four factors are there that now we are going to discuss, that these factors that affect, influence means affect the climate or weather. Okay, so now the first factor we are going to discuss, children, about latitude. Latitude. Since your childhood you are learning about the imaginary lines. Imaginary lines. There are many imaginary lines are there, but out of that the two main imaginary lines are there that are called as latitudes and longitudes. In 9th class you learned in a very detailed way. Okay, so how latitude affects the climate. This is a topic that we discussed in 9th class already. Latitude. First of all, latitude, we also call them, children, it has the sleeping lines. And the longest latitude is equator. You know already very well. Okay, equator. And then followed by, here we find some of the tropics. Here we find some of the tropics. What are those, children? 23.5 degree. What is that? Towards the south, Tropic of Capricorn. 23.5 degree towards the north, Tropic of Cancer. Then what is this one, children? Followed by the other one. Yes, tell me about that one. Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn. Then followed by, children, there are many other lines are there. And then followed by, children, poles towards this 90 degrees. Okay, poles towards this 90 degrees. Okay, children. So, now, how we can say that latitude affects the climate? Yes, remember last year what we discussed? We discussed that equator is an area, listen it carefully, equator is an area that receives sunlight directly. Where we find sun rays falls directly on the equator. Because of that, equator area or equatorial area are having very high temperature. Okay, so the area that are very close to the equator receives very high temperature. Okay, so equator is affecting the climate. Equator is affecting the weather. Whereas as we move towards north or towards south of these poles, we find that as we move towards south or the north towards the pole, we find that the weather or climatic condition become cool, because here the sunrise falls slantingly cross. So it is not making that area much heated. This is a common thing, children, that you learned in your previous class. So is it clear how latitude is affecting? For example, if I draw the India map like this. Okay, if I draw the India map like this, what we find, the southern part of the country is very close to the equator. Okay, so this area that are very close to the equator, here we find these areas are having high temperature comparing to the areas of this side above the Tropic of Cancer. So what we call here, the area near the equator is called as tropical area, and this area is called as subtropical area. This area is called as subtropical area. So what we discussed, children, in our previous classes, we discussed that the temperature that are received by the southern part of the country is high comparing to the temperature received by the other parts of the country. The temperature received by from this part of the country is completely different from the Himalayas region. That means what we find that Himalayas are very cool. The question comes, children, already in our first lesson we discussed about Himalayas. What is the reason that Himalayas are very cool? Because Himalayas are far away from the equator. It is away from the equator and it is close to the tropics. Okay, because of that we find the Himalayas are very cool in nature. So I hope it is very clear that why we are telling that the latitude is affecting the climate. Is it clear, children? Now, After the latitude affecting the climate, the second one, that is distance from the sea. Distance from the sea. What do you think that the distance from the sea is affecting the India? Yes. Once again, how? Suppose this is, you know that this is Arabian Sea, this is Bay of Bengal, this is Indian Ocean. Okay, let us explain. Let us understand like this one. As you all know that land gets heated. Land gets heated. Land gets heated very soon, and lands get cool also very soon. Comparing to the sea, sea gets heated very slowly, very slow, and cool also very slow. This is a common thing that we discussed in our 9th class also. So land gets heated faster than the sea. Land gets cooler faster than the sea. Sea gets heated slowly than the land. So what we understand that land areas. Okay, now listen it very carefully. So what we find that during the daytime, we find that in this time there is a cold wave blow as the sunrise falls on the land, so it gets heated very slowly, and by that time the cold wave blow from this coastal areas. Cold wave blow from this coastal areas, and this cold wave blow, it creates low pressure. This cold wave creates what we call children, develops a low pressure towards the land area. So what happened during the daytime? Land gets heated, but every time from the coastal area, from the sea area, cool air is blowing. When the cool air is blowing, it makes that land to become cool. And as soon as it becomes evening, children, we find that whatever the land absorbs the heat, it reflected back. It gives back to the atmosphere. So it becomes cool very soon. That's why land gets heated very soon. So when land gets heated very soon, it is affecting the climate. Coming to this side towards the sea area or the coastal area, it takes time, long time for a water to get heated up, and long time water to become cooled down. In the night time, what happened? When the land becomes cool, sea areas are very hot. So what happened? From the land in the night time, the cool wind blow towards the coastal area, where the seas are still warm in the night time. So cool wave blow towards the sea area, changes the temperature of this area. During the daytime, from sea area, cool wave blow towards the land area, and it gets the land very cool. So very simple one, children. What we have to understand in this one, very simple one, that during the daytime, cool winds blow. From where to where, children? Sea to land. During the night time, what happens, children? Cool winds blow from land to sea. Cool winds blow from land to sea, and it changes the temperatures. So these all we find variations, okay, that change the temperature, weather and climate. Okay, and just simply if we take the example like that, if we go near to any beach area, near some river area, when we sit near the bank, coastal area of river, we get to children very cool air. We get it, children, in the daytime when we go and sit near the beach area or the river area, we get the cool air blow from the water sides. Okay, so that reduces the temperature. That cool area that we can find, it reduces the temperature. Okay, for example, all of you recently you came to Karimnagar, you visited Karimnagar when all the 20 doors were opened, and you visited the dams also. When you visited the dam, you observed that the cool wave was blowing, the wind you were getting, children. Okay, but when you came back to your village, did you get that cool wind, children, in your village? How you felt in near the dam area? No. What it shows that near the coastal area, every time the cool wave, the wind blow towards the land, and it reduces the temperature. But during the night time, we find these cool winds blow from the land towards the sea, and again it changes the temperature. That means distance from the sea is affecting the weather and climate. Next one, altitude. What is altitude, children? Altitude, it means height. Altitude, it means height also, we can say. Height. How we can say that the altitude is responsible for the change of weather and climate? As the common thing in your 7th class, you learn that temperature decreases. You learn temperature decreases with the increase in height. With the increase in altitude also, you can say. So it is found that as we go up and up, children, okay, as we move towards the higher area, higher levels, we find that fresh wind blow, fresh cool winds blow, children. Just take an example. Where you are living in your house, and suppose if your house, it has ground floor. Just an example, children. If suppose you are living in a home or you are living in an apartment, you take it. You are living in an apartment, children. Okay, so in the apartment, you are living in this particular ground floor area. In the ground floor area, you can observe that here the temperature is very high because all the polluted things and everything, children, it is coming towards this side, and there are no way to go get exit from all these things. But when you move towards the top level, when you go to the top floor, children, when you move to the top floor, we can observe here in this floor a very cool winds blow. Why? Because this area is free from all these what you call pollutions, dust and all those things. In these areas we find pollution, dust and all the other things we find. But as we move up, we find the wind becomes very cool and cool. Take the example of our school only. When you sit in the ground when you stand in the ground for assembly purpose daily morning, you feel that it is very hot. But at the same time, when you go to the top floor, children, when you go to the second floor of our school, what do you find? You find the cool winds are blowing, children, from here to there. You can find that you can enjoy the beautiful scenery that are there near our school. Okay, so what it shows, as we go up, the air becomes lighter because air is not having dust. Air is not having pollution. So air becomes lighter and air becomes very cool. But as we go down, air becomes dense, thick, because this air contains dust particles, polluted things, etc. So it shows that in all the altitude height areas, it affects the weather. Weather is what? Elements like temperature, elements like humidity, elements like wind, elements like precipitation. So we find that everything change in the height areas. That is why, no, you observe that most of the people during the summer season, they visit to the hill stations. Such as the hill station, like in our South India, we are having Udaga What is this Udaga Mandalam? It's nothing but Ooty. So in Ooty, you know that area is hot. That Ooty is situated in South India, very close to the equator. But still Ooty is a hill station because it is situated in some high altitude. Take another example. You heard about Rajasthan. Rajasthan is an area where the temperature exceeds 50 degrees Celsius also. But in Rajasthan, there is one hill station that is very cool. Same area, one hill station is there that is very cool, called as Mount Abu. Mount Abu is a mountain where we find the people, they spend their summers in, especially most of the rich people in Rajasthan, they spend their summers because in Mount Abu, as it is situated in hilly area, mountain area, it is very cool and people get relaxed from the hot temperature. So that's why we say that altitude is also playing a very important role in affecting the weather and climate. Okay, so after this altitude, what we are having, children? We are having upper air circulation. How can we say that upper air circulation is helpful for changing the weather and climate? So remember, children, in our 9th class, we discussed one of the topic called as trade winds. What is a trade winds, children? Trade winds are nothing but the winds that blow continuously in one direction. It is also called as track. Trade is a German word that means a track. So continuous blow of a wind from one particular direction. So from where to where these trade winds blow, children? The winds that blow from subtropical from subtropical region to tropical to tropics is called as trade winds. When we look after this one, this is equator. This is equator. So here subtropics are there, no children. Here subtropics are there. Tropic of Cancer is there. So winds that blow from this tropic to the equator. Okay, that is called as trade winds. Now you are getting a question, why I have taken this one. Children, when the wind, suppose in equator, you know already that it is a very high temperature zone, very high temperature area. But when the cool winds come from this tropic, children, when the cool winds come from the tropic to this equator, it is helpful to reduce the temperature. It is helpful to reduce the temperature. So in this way we can say that this winds that blow, trade winds, it change the temperature. It affects the weather and the climate. Now in this one we are having one more word to learn. What is that word? We have to learn this one. Sometime it came for the 1 mark question also, children. That is called as jet streams. What do we mean by jet streams? So jet streams are nothing but, children, upper air currents. The wind that blow in the upper areas, children. Upper air current. Current means what? The winds that are blowing with a very fast speed, children. Very fast speed. And what is that area, children? The about 1200 meters. About 1200 meters, children. The wind that blow, children, 12,000 meters, children. That is called as jet streams, upper air current. What is the speed? Already we discussed in our 9th class. In summer season, these winds, it blow with a speed of about, children, 110 kilometer. 110 kilometer per hour. Whereas in the winter season, these winds, children, it blow of about 184 kilometer per hour. So this is the blow of the wind. So when the winds, cool winds, blow in a with a very high speed in an upper air circulation, that is upper air, the area of about 12,000. So this is helpful to change the weather. Children, if there is a high temperature, just you observe during the summer season, when sometime we feel, children, it's very hot, but sometime we find that when the cool winds it blows, it helpful to reduce the temperature. Same thing, this upper air circulation, the winds that blow above the 12,000 meters of height with the speed of about these two different speeds in these two different seasons, children, it is helpful to affect the weather. Okay, so these are all called as, children, the factors that influence the climate, weather and climate. So I hope, children, that today's topic is clear to all of you. So what you have to do is, children, you have to just go through the textbook, children. Go through the textbook, read the lesson, children. Whatever the graphs are there, try to understand it, children. Our next topic from this lesson is season. So children, there are 4 seasons are there. And about that, immediately I'm going to send you another video, children, about the seasons. Okay, so I hope today's topic is clear. Thank you one and all. Thank you, children.